The millionaire CEO was her boss, yet his secretary could not escape a forbidden attraction. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. Emily Carter learns early that silence can be a kind of armor. On the 42nd floor of Whitmore Holdings, silence hums like electricity through glass and steel, broken only by the low whisper of air vents and the soft tick of a wall clock that costs more than her first car. She stands outside the corner office, fingers resting on a leather portfolio, breathing once, twice, steadying herself. Inside, Alexander Whitmore is already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled to the forearms, posture straight as a ruler, eyes on a city that looks like it belongs to him. Emily knows the rules. She wrote them for herself the day she accepted the position. Be precise. Be invisible. Be indispensable. She knocks. The door opens. He turns, expression controlled, professional, the kind that never invites questions. You're early, he says. I like early, she replies, because it is safe and true. She hands him the schedule, the calls color-coded, the crisis already neutralized before it can breathe. He scans it, nods once. Their hands do not touch. They never do. The attraction has no permission, no language, only a pressure that gathers in small moments. The way his voice drops when he's tired, the way she anticipates a question before he asks it, the way the room seems to tilt when they are alone after midnight and the building forgets them. Emily tells herself this is proximity, not desire. She tells herself competence can feel intimate. She tells herself he is her boss. Alex tells himself boundaries are leadership. He tells himself feelings are variables to be eliminated. He tells himself she is exceptional, which is not the same as dangerous until it is. A late meeting runs long. The board wants certainty. The market wants bloodless confidence. Emily stands by the window, relaying numbers, her reflection layered. Over the skyline, Alex watches the reflection instead of the view. He looks away first. We'll need to prepare a statement, he says. I'll draft it tonight, she answers. Their eyes meet for half a second too long, a misstep measured in inches. He exhales, controlled. Emily, he begins, then stops, as if the word itself has weight. We should be clear. She nods, already bracing. Yes. He turns from the window, sets the boundary with the care of someone who builds bridges for a living. You're my secretary. This can never happen. The sentence lands cleanly, no accusation, no apology. It is meant to protect them both. Emily feels the truth of it and the lie of it at the same time. Of course, she says, because it is her job to keep things from breaking. She leaves the office with her posture intact, heart loud, the elevator descending at a pace that feels like a test. Outside, the city keeps moving, 12 lanes of headlights like a promise that motion will save her. Inside, Alex remains by the window, hands braced on the glass, knowing leadership has never felt this close to failure. Somewhere between the rules they have agreed to and the silence they share, something has already begun, quiet and forbidden, asking not for permission but for a choice neither of them is ready to make. Morning comes early on the 42nd floor, and Emily Carter arrives before the city finishes waking up, because routine is the only thing that keeps her steady. She places her bag under the desk, aligns the pens, opens the calendar that holds other people's lives, and tells herself that last night was a sentence she can live with. This job pays for her mother's medication, keeps the lights on in a small apartment 30 miles away, and promises a future that does not wobble when rent is due. She grew up learning that stability is earned one careful choice at a time, that feelings are expensive, that a good paycheck is louder than a soft heart. At 8:30 sharp, Alexander Whitmore steps out of the elevator and the office tilts into motion around him. The hallway straightens, voices lower, decisions become crisp. Emily stands to greet him, professional, precise, already 10 steps ahead. They exchange a nod that says everything and nothing. The rule he set the night before hangs between them like glass. For Alex, the stakes were a different suit. Whitmore Holdings is not just a company. It is a promise to investors, a shield against chaos, a legacy that demands discipline. One headline can shave billions off market value. One rumor can turn a boardroom into a firing squad. He learned early that control is kindness at scale, that personal weakness becomes public damage. His calendar is a minefield of meetings, regulatory calls, and a pending acquisition that could define the next decade. Emily is the axis on which his day spins, and that knowledge unsettles him more than any market swing. By mid-morning, a minor crisis blooms and dies before lunch because Emily anticipates it, reroutes a call, and drafts language that keeps the temperature down. Alex signs without reading the last line, trusting her instinct the way pilots trust instruments. Trust is supposed to be impersonal. Today it feels specific. At noon, she skips lunch, calculating the week in dollars and cents, measuring time like a budget. She thinks of her father's voice telling her to keep her head down and her promises up. She thinks of the word never and tries to make it smaller. Across the hall, Alex stands in a meeting room with floor-to-ceiling windows, outlining projections in miles and percentages, his voice steady, his mind wandering to the moment he said no because yes would have been easier and far more dangerous. He watches his reflection in the glass and recognizes the man who does not take risks unless they can be modeled. Desire does not fit a spreadsheet. In the afternoon, they travel to a client site 15 miles away, sitting opposite each other in the back of a car that hums with the road. Emily reviews notes. Alex reviews numbers. The silence is clean and enforced, a professional distance that costs more effort than conversation. When the driver brakes, Emily's hand reaches for the seat by habit and stops short of him, the space between their fingers precise, deliberate. She withdraws, cheeks warm, eyes back on the page. He notices everything and pretends not to. By 5, the building exhales and people leave. Emily stays. Alex stays. Work fills the hours because work is safer than naming what lingers. The rule holds because it must. If it breaks, she risks everything she has built. If he breaks it, he risks everything he leads. The attraction does not argue. It waits, patient as a city after dark, counting the cost and daring them to do the same. The third day arrives with rain streaking the windows like quiet decisions made in advance, and Emily Carter learns that boundaries are easier to set than to maintain. The acquisition moves into its delicate phase, measured in hours and confidence, and she becomes the hinge between calm and chaos. She fields calls, drafts revisions, and corrects a comma that could change meaning, because precision is her language of care. Alexander Whitmore watches the machine work because he built it, because it works, because it requires trust, and because trust now has a face he sees too often. In the late morning, a courier delivers a sealed folder marked urgent, and Emily clocks the risk before anyone raises a voice. She steps into his office, closes the door with a practiced hand, and lays out options that keep the company insulated. Alex listens, nods, and signs, his pen steady, his mind racing at how easily she carries weight that would crush others. He tells himself this is why she is here. She tells herself this is why she stays. At 1:15, the board calls an emergency session, and the city disappears behind glass as Alex presents numbers in miles and minutes, projecting confidence like a shield. Emily sits just beyond the camera frame, passing notes with clean handwriting that says exactly what needs to be said and nothing more. When a director challenges an assumption, she writes a single line and slides it across the table, and Alex answers without pause, because the line is right. The meeting ends with approval, applause muted by screens, and the cost of relief paid in silence. Afterward, they walk the corridor together, steps matched, conversation limited to logistics because logistics are safe. A junior associate passes, eyes curious, and Emily straightens, careful with distance, careful with posture, careful with the invisible contract she believes protects them both. In the afternoon, Alex cancels a dinner he does not want to attend and replaces it with another call he does not need, because idle time is dangerous. Emily notices, because she notices everything, and adjusts his evening without comment. She leaves her desk at 7, later than planned, because the numbers need one more look, and because leaving feels like a loss she cannot name. In the elevator, the lights hum and the doors close, and for one suspended second it is just the two of them, the city below, the rule between them. Alex speaks first, voice measured. He thanks her for the safe, She accepts with a nod, because gratitude is neutral ground. The car stops one floor early due to maintenance, and they step out together, the hallway empty, the rain louder. Emily realizes she forgot her umbrella. Alex notices and offers a ride without thinking, the word already there. She hesitates, calculating optics, weighing weather against rumor, choosing the lesser risk. The car smells like leather and rain, and they sit apart, eyes forward, the wipers keeping time. Traffic stretches the drive to 40 minutes, and the radio fills space with voices that do not matter. Emily watches streetlights pass and thinks of how much easier it would be to say nothing forever. Alex grips the wheel and thinks of how leadership demands sacrifice, and how sacrifice has begun to feel personal. When they reach her apartment, modest and quiet, he stops the car and leaves the engine running, a boundary that hums. She thanks him and opens the door, rain rushing in. He says her name, not as a title, not as a rule, just as a fact. She turns, heart loud, and meets his eyes. The words they do not say sit heavy and exact. She steps out, closes the door, and walks inside without looking back, because looking back would be a choice. Alex watches the building until the lights change and then drives away, knowing the contract is holding, knowing it is costing them both more than they planned, knowing that discipline can look like distance and still feel like longing. The following week settles into a rhythm that feels earned, like a routine practiced until it stops asking questions, and Emily Carter discovers that closeness does not always announce itself with words. It arrives as logistics that align too well, as days that run smoother than they should, as a shared understanding that makes the office feel smaller and more precise. She prepares briefing packets before Alex requests them, anticipates the cadence of his mornings, and schedules breathing room where pressure would normally sit. Alex responds by trusting her further, delegating decisions that once required his signature, letting her voice shape outcomes in rooms she does not enter. This is not romance, she tells herself. This is efficiency. It begins with late nights that stretch without drama. The building empties, the elevators slow, and the city becomes a constellation below them. They work side by side in silence, a document open between them, edits traded with a glance. Emily learns the tells of his fatigue and counters with coffee measured to the ounce, never asking if he wants it. Alex learns the tilt of her concentration and waits, patient, when she needs another minute. Their laughter is rare and quiet, reserved for errors caught just in time, for small victories that no one else will notice. It is safer that way. One evening, a charity gala appears on the calendar, unavoidable and public, and Emily coordinates attire, transportation, and talking points with practiced calm. Alex thanks her and adds a note about the donor list, his tone careful, aware of optics. At the event, she stays a step behind him, invisible by design, handling interruptions with grace, deflecting questions, keeping the temperature cool. When a potential partner pushes too hard, Emily steps in with a smile that closes doors without slamming them. Alex watches, impressed, grateful, unsettled by how much he relies on her steadiness. Later, in the car, the city sliding past in gold and white, he tells her she did well. She answers that it was her job. The words are true and insufficient. Days later, a small crisis threatens to turn personal. An article drafts itself online, speculative and careless, pairing power with proximity. Emily intercepts it before it publishes, negotiating language until rumor becomes nothing. Alex feels the weight of what could have happened and the cost she absorbed to prevent it. He asks if she is all right. She says yes because yes is the answer that keeps things intact. The montage continues in details that accumulate. Shared calendars sync without effort. Flights reschedule smoothly. Meetings end on time. They walk the same corridor after hours and part ways at the elevator with identical pauses, neither willing to be the first to leave. Emily notices how often Alex chooses her conference room for calls, how he stands near the window when he thinks. Alex notices the book she reads between tasks, the quiet resolve in the way she protects others from his sharper edges. It is not a contract they signed, but it behaves like one, binding them to care without confession. On a Thursday near midnight, a thunderstorm rolls in, rain tapping the glass like punctuation. The lights flicker and hold. Emily finishes a report and gathers her things, hesitating because something feels unfinished. Alex looks up, says her name again, and this time adds nothing else. The silence stretches, full and exact. She tells him she will see him in the morning. He tells her to drive safely. She leaves with her posture intact, heart loud, knowing they are standing on the edge of something shaped like habit and feeling, knowing the distance they keep is starting to resemble intimacy, knowing the arrangement is still professional and already changing, one quiet night at a time. The gala arrives dressed as obligation, polished and bright, the kind of night that pretends to be generous while watching closely, and Emily Carter prepares for it like a surgeon preparing an operating room. She confirms arrivals, checks seating down to the inch, reviews names until they sound like numbers, and positions herself where problems usually begin. Alexander Whitmore steps into the ballroom with practiced ease, tuxedo precise, smile calibrated, the weight of expectations settling onto his shoulders. Cameras blink. Donors cluster. The room hums with influence measured in dollars and proximity. Emily stays just behind his right shoulder, invisible by design, listening for shifts in tone, reading micro-expressions, adjusting trajectories before friction sparks. Early on, a prominent executive from a rival firm approaches with a grin too wide, words wrapped in praise that hides a hook. Alex answers with courtesy. Emily notices the pause that suggests pressure and steps in with a gentle redirection, a schedule reminder delivered like a compliment. The executive retreats, appeased. Alex exhales without showing it. The test comes disguised as charm. A well-known social figure drifts close, laughing too easily, speaking loudly enough for the room to hear, drawing lines between success and access. She touches Alex's sleeve with familiarity she has not earned. Emily watches the temperature rise and moves, offering an introduction that diffuses the moment, placing herself between optics and damage with a smile that means business. The room recalibrates. Later, during a live pledge announcement, a technical glitch stalls the screen. Murmurs ripple. Emily signals the team, fills the silence with a brief story that reframes delay as anticipation and cues the backup without breaking rhythm. Applause lands on time. Alex watches from the stage edge, admiration sharp and inconvenient. When a reporter corners him near the bar and asks a leading question about leadership and loyalty, Emily passes a card with 3 words written clean and calm. Alex answers exactly those words and nothing more. The headline dies before it is born. As the night deepens, the board chair pulls Alex aside, voice low, eyes curious, asking about the woman who seems to run gravity. Alex answers carefully, crediting professionalism, emphasizing structure. The chair nods, satisfied for now, and moves on. Emily feels the scrutiny like weather and keeps her posture steady. In the quiet after the final toast, the city glittering beyond tall windows, Alex thanks her again, this time with emphasis. She answers that it was a team effort, because it always is. On the ride back, traffic inches along, and the silence stretches. Alex breaks it softly, acknowledging how she protected him in public, how she turned risk into calm. Emily listens, hands folded, choosing her words. She says she did what the role requires. He hears what she does not say. When they reach the curb outside the building, the valet returns the keys, and the night exhales. Alex turns to her, eyes steady, and says he could not have done it without her. The sentence feels like a line crossed and a truth spoken. Emily meets his gaze, heart loud, and answers that he did it himself. The doors open. The moment passes. Inside the elevator, mirrors multiply them into versions they do not recognize, all standing straight, all silent, all carrying the same question. The test has been passed in public, clean and complete, and the cost of that success settles between them, heavy and undeniable, because what held under the lights has begun to demand something more than rules once the room goes dark. The night after the gala leaves a residue that refuses to fade, and the following days move slower, as if the building itself senses a shift. Emily Carter returns to her routines with extra care, tightening schedules, smoothing edges, keeping the machine clean. Alexander Whitmore mirrors her restraint, doubling down on discipline, choosing meetings over pauses, answers over questions. The space between them holds, precise and practiced, but it hums. Now, charged by what almost surfaced under the lights. On a Tuesday evening, a long day stretches into quiet, and the office thins to a skeleton crew. Emily finishes a final brief and stands, unsure whether to leave or to say something that has no approved language. Alex looks up, catches the hesitation, and asks if she has a moment. She nods because honesty feels safer than distance tonight. They step onto the rooftop terrace, the city spread below in miles of white and amber, the wind cool and clean. It is a place designed for perspective, for decisions that require air. Alex leans against the railing, hands open, not performing. Emily stands a careful arm length away, posture steady, eyes on the horizon. He thanks her again, but this time the words carry weight, gratitude edged with vulnerability. He tells her the truth in pieces, how leadership taught him to compartmentalize, how silence became armor, how control kept him upright when everything else wanted to tilt. He admits the gala scared him, not because of headlines, but because he saw how easily she steadied him in public and how unsteady that made him in private. Emily listens, breath measured, recognizing a confession shaped like restraint. She answers with her own truth, small and exact. She talks about responsibility learned early, about choosing certainty because feelings felt like debts she could not afford, about the fear of being seen and then losing ground. She says the rule matters because it protects them both. He agrees, immediately, sincerely, and the agreement lands like a promise and a loss. The wind shifts. The city keeps moving. Alex says her name, then stops, choosing care over momentum. He tells her that whatever exists between them, it will not be taken. It will be chosen or it will be left alone. Emily feels relief and ache in equal measure. She thanks him for saying that, for naming a boundary that respects her dignity. They stand there, sharing the quiet, the kind that does not ask to be filled. When a notification chimes on his phone, the spell softens but does not break. Work waits. Reality returns. Back inside, the lights feel warmer, the corridors familiar again. Emily gathers her things. Alex walks her to the elevator and presses the button without thinking. The doors close. The descent feels longer than usual. Neither speaks. At the lobby, the doors open and the night rushes in. Emily steps out and turns back, meeting his eyes with a steadiness that surprises her. She says goodnight. He says goodnight. The words carry more than they ever have. Outside, she walks toward the street, the city loud and alive, feeling lighter and heavier all at once. Upstairs, Alex remains by the elevator, understanding that closeness does not require crossing lines to be real, understanding that wanting something and respecting it can coexist. The quiet crack has opened, not with heat or haste, but with truth carefully placed, and as the building settles into sleep, both of them know the rule still stands, and that standing has begun to change what it means. The shift comes quietly at first, disguised as routine, and then it accelerates with the precision of a system correcting itself. An internal memo circulates with careful language about optics and governance, and Emily Carter reads it twice before the meaning settles. There is talk of proximity, of perceptions, of the need to reinforce boundaries in a season of scrutiny. Nothing is said directly, which makes everything louder. She adjusts the schedule, keeps her face neutral, and tells herself this is what professionalism looks like when tested. Alexander Whitmore feels the pressure before it reaches his desk, a tightening in the cadence of calls, a sudden interest from directors who prefer to remain distant. A meeting appears on the calendar labeled Governance Review, and he knows what it means. In the boardroom, the conversation stays polite and surgical. They praise performance, cite the recent success, and then pivot to risk. A director mentions rumor without naming it. Another mentions alignment. The chair asks a question that pretends to be procedural but lands personal. Alex answers with facts and structure, emphasizing policy, emphasizing restraint. He does not offer names. He does not offer feelings. He leaves the room with approval intact and a condition implied. Outside, the city glints as if nothing has changed. By afternoon, a whisper moves through the office, subtle but persistent. Emily senses it in glances that linger, in conversations that quiet when she approaches. She keeps moving, keeps solving problems, keeps the machine running. Alex calls her into his office and closes the door. The air feels different, thinner. He tells her the truth without drama, the board's concern, the request. For distance made formal, the expectation of decisive action. He says it is not about fault. He says it is about protection. Emily listens, hands folded, heart loud. She understands immediately what the system requires. She asks one question, steady and precise. Is this temporary? Alex hesitates, and the hesitation answers for him. The rule has evolved into a demand. Emily nods, because clarity is a kindness. She asks for an hour. In that hour, she writes a resignation letter that is clean and brief, citing personal reasons and gratitude. She prints it, signs it, and places it in a folder she has used for years. When she returns, Alex stands as she enters, eyes searching, already knowing. She hands him the letter and says she does not want the company to pay a price for what never crossed a line. She says this choice keeps the work clean and the people whole. Alex feels the floor tilt and steadies himself with leadership he has practiced too long. He tells her he cannot accept it. She tells him he must. The exchange is quiet, exact, and devastating in its respect. They agree on a timeline that preserves dignity. There will be no announcement until arrangements are made. There will be no explanation beyond what is necessary. The office hums outside, unaware. In the days that follow, Emily transitions with precision, training her replacement, documenting processes, leaving nothing to chance. Colleagues thank her, puzzled but appreciative. Alex watches from a distance he did not choose, signing approvals with a hand that feels heavier than it should. On her final evening, the building empties early. Emily packs her desk, leaving it as she found it, clean and complete. Alex meets her at the elevator, says what he can say, thanks her for everything. She thanks him back, for trust, for respect, for choosing integrity even when it hurts. The doors close. The descent is quiet. When the doors open, Emily steps into the lobby and does not look back. Upstairs, Alex returns to his office and stares at the city, understanding that leadership has asked him to keep his position and lose his anchor, understanding that the rule held and still broke them apart, understanding that the choice has been made and the cost has been paid in full. Time stretches after Emily Carter leaves, and the building feels larger, quieter as if efficiency has lost its pulse. Alexander Whitmore keeps his position and watches performance rise on paper while something essential thins. Meetings multiply. Approvals stack. He signs and delegates with practiced calm, but the nights lengthen and the view from the window feels hollow. The board schedules a strategic summit, public and consequential, meant to lock in the next phase of growth and reassure investors that governance remains untouchable. Alex prepares like a professional, reviews numbers, drafts remarks, and notices the absence that once steadied him. Across town, Emily builds a new rhythm that does not rely on elevators or glass walls. She consults independently, chooses clients carefully, and learns what her competence sounds like without a title. She keeps her distance because distance is respectful. She keeps moving because stopping would invite regret. On the morning of the summit, Alex stands before a mirror and recognizes the man he has been and the man he has avoided becoming. He recalls the night on the rooftop, the promise to choose, the cost already paid, and understands that keeping everything has left him with less. The ballroom fills with familiar faces, cameras positioned, analysts ready. Alex steps onto the stage, remarks prepared, voice steady. He begins with performance, then pivots. He speaks about leadership as responsibility, about trust as action, about the danger of protecting systems at the expense of people. The room stills. He names the truth without names, acknowledges the choice he made to preserve optics, and admits the loss that followed. He pauses, breath measured, and does what he has not done before. He announces a planned transition, effective immediately, transferring authority to a successor groomed for stability. Gasps ripple, then silence. He states that leadership requires alignment between values and decisions, and that when alignment breaks, change is the ethical response. Questions wait, but he continues, firm and calm, emphasizing continuity, safeguards, and the company's strength beyond any single person. The board chair watches, stunned, then nods once, recognizing conviction even as control shifts. Outside the lights, the city keeps its pace. Across town, Emily hears the news through a notification that stops her mid-step. She reads it twice, then once more, because disbelief needs confirmation. She does not rush. She finishes her call, thanks her client, and steps outside into clean air. Back at the summit, Alex answers questions with transparency, refusing drama, choosing clarity. When the microphone's lower, he feels lighter and uncertain, the way freedom often arrives. He leaves without an escort, walks until the noise fades, and drives without destination until instinct takes over. He finds the cafe Emily once mentioned, small and unassuming, the kind that measures success in warmth. She is there by coincidence or fate, a cup cooling between her hands. He stops, considers leaving, then chooses presence. He approaches with care, not ownership. She looks up, surprised, then steady. He tells her what he did and why, without asking for anything in return. He says leadership cost him love once, and he refused to let it again. Emily listens, heart loud, recognizing the risk he chose and the integrity of it. She does not promise. She does not retreat. She says thank you for choosing honesty and for honoring her dignity when it mattered most. They sit in the ordinary light, two people without titles between them, the future unclaimed and real, knowing that whatever comes next will be chosen openly, without contracts or shadows, and that this choice, public and private, has finally turned something forbidden into something possible. Weeks pass with a gentler rhythm, and the city seems to recognize the change before they do. Alexander Whitmore becomes Alex again, mornings measured by sunlight instead of calendars, evenings shaped by choices rather than demands. Emily Carter builds momentum on her own terms, her work valued without proximity to power, her confidence no longer borrowed from a title. They meet without choreography, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for walks measured in blocks and honesty. There is no rush, only alignment growing quiet and sure. One afternoon, Alex invites Emily to a small gallery opening funded by a community grant he helped establish after stepping down, a place where ideas are welcomed without velvet ropes. She arrives unannounced, smiles easy, and the room warms. They talk with artists and neighbors, listening more than speaking, discovering how shared values sound outside boardrooms. Later, as dusk settles, they step outside into air that feels earned. Alex tells her he is learning how to lead without commanding, how to give without controlling. Emily tells him she is learning how to receive without losing herself. The words land clean and mutual. Over time, they choose each other in practical ways, supporting schedules, respecting independence, protecting space. There are no secrets now, only conversations that begin early and end when truth is finished speaking. On a clear Saturday morning, Alex suggests a drive north, nothing planned, miles unfolding like a question. They stop near a quiet overlook where the city thins into trees and sky. The wind carries the sound of nothing urgent. Alex does not kneel or perform. He stands beside her, eyes steady, and speaks with the same clarity he once reserved for investors. He tells her he does not want a future built on rescue or sacrifice, but on partnership chosen freely. He asks if she will walk forward with him, openly, without contracts or shadows, with the understanding that dignity comes first. Emily feels the weight of the journey behind them and the steadiness of the ground ahead. She answers yes without hurry, because yes has finally become safe. They do not announce anything. They return to the city and let life continue, letting the truth reveal itself through consistency. Months later, a modest ceremony gathers people who know them as they are, not as they were. There are no speeches about power, only gratitude for courage and care. Emily wears simplicity like a promise kept. Alex smiles without calculation. They exchange vows that sound like commitments they have already practiced, to choose honesty, to protect each other's independence, to lead with kindness. Afterward, they walk through the neighborhood where it all began, past glass and steel, past the building that once defined the limits of their world. Alex squeezes Emily's hand, not to claim, but to share. She squeezes back, equal and certain. The city hums around them, indifferent and alive, and they move within it unhidden, understanding that love did not ask them to be smaller, only truer, and that the best leadership they will ever practice is choosing each other every day, without fear.